Countries like Brunei, Vietnam, Malaysia, and others have begun to claim islands and several other zones in the South China Sea since the 1970s. Since then, the race to claim territory in the South China Sea has intensified. In recent years, satellite imagery has revealed China's increasing efforts to regain territory in the South China Sea by physically extending islands or building whole new islands. Many parties also urged ASEAN to intervene in this issue. They are hoping for a solution or settlement to reduce unneeded military threats. However, ASEAN has its own method of reaching a goal, which is based on the four principles outlined in the ASEAN Way. How can the ASEAN Way play its role in dealing with the South China Sea disputes?
Hello everyone and welcome back to my podcast. In today's episode, I'll be talking about conflict resolution in Southeast Asia, how ASEAN Way plays a role in the South China Sea dispute. I'm sure you guys have seen the introduction video and got a glimpse of the topic today, but to bring you an in-depth understanding, I'm going to introduce you guys to two of our analysts here that will help in this episode. So hello, good afternoon, Miss Alexia and Miss Annisa. So I'm sure you guys follow the issue, right, about the South China Sea dispute. This time I feel like we have to know how ASEAN actually approached the issue, since we want to know, since it is a matter that involves ASEAN in the party, right? And first of all, I have actually prepared two videos today, and the first video will be talking about the approach that ASEAN always use in their kind of regional or international issues or conflict. So I guess we can watch the video first.
NATO, UN, ICJ, and any other international organization always have an approach that they fond of or that works inside their body framework, and that approach will most likely become one of the main characteristics of that organization. ASEAN, an international organization based in Southeast Asia, is popular for the approach known as the ASEAN Way, an approach used to do the interstate relations, an approach that promotes the foundation to create a harmonized and stable international regional order for the ASEAN member. The ASEAN Way is believed by many scholars that the basis of it comes from two Indonesian words, musyawarah and mufakat, which means consultation and consensus. Why? As Weatherby stated in his article, the ASEAN Way contributes to the system to avoid conflicts by relying on informal negotiation. Knowing it relies on informal action raised many doubts on its percentage of success. Scholars like Amitav and Oishi are different from Weatherby. They question the integrity or discipline of the result. Will it last? Will it survive? Or can it backfire later on? The ASEAN Way surely has its own effectiveness, but that does not mean that the result will always be in favor with the first expectation. And using informal action can be considered as suicide, as the approach will have an open weakness if it's not done right. So is it really an ideal approach in the end?
Right, so the video was about ASEAN Way, and it was the approach for the where the ASEAN actually uses it in every conflict that they use. So what do you guys think about the approach? Is it relevant to the issue, or is it actually relevant to any formal issues? Or actually, is it effective also? Maybe you can start with Anisa.
Okay, yes, indeed. For me, the ASEAN Way is maybe the compatible framework that should be adopted in how Southeast Asia settle their disputes. Because you know that ASEAN is, especially ASEAN, we have almost the same identity and like close border or something like that. So the ASEAN Way would dodge those things. The armed conflicts or like the kind of disputes that will harm the ASEAN people.
Okay, so from your opinion, maybe you agree that the ASEAN Way is actually a very suitable approach for any conflict within the ASEAN region. Okay, so from Ms. Aisha, maybe you have something different from Ms. Anisa?
Okay, so from the way I see it, I think both formal and also informal approach is very well needed. And it cannot always be formal, and it cannot always be informal. So I understand the idea, the objective of ASEAN Way, and it is good. But because they want to resolve issues with a more informal approach, maybe. But we have to understand that approach could make or break whatever it is that we are currently facing. So in a way, ASEAN itself has to be careful in executing the ASEAN Way.
Okay, so from Ms. Aisha, basically you agree with the opinion of Ms. Anisa, but you had something after that. The ASEAN Way isn't a perfect approach. That is actually very vulnerable or fragile to any other sort of it is very fragile, okay, right? So the ASEAN actually have to be very precise and very prepared in order to execute it. Okay. So talking about the ASEAN Way, so we have now understand about the approach, and I guess so we can actually go to issue the South China Sea dispute, but before that we have to see the lore or the background of it. So here is the video.
The context of the South China Sea tension can always be seen from two different frameworks. It always be either competition or cooperation. I'll try to elaborate each framework through several thinkers that have brought significant perspective in this region. Donald Weatherby, an American professor who once taught in Indonesia for almost 4 years, emphasized that the South China Sea has never been an arena for peace and cooperation. Always conflict and always competition. Why? Because geographically, the South China Sea is at the strategic location. Trade and maritime routes, enormous biota resources, even immense crude oil, so on and so forth. Even Mikio Oishi, a Malaysia professor, also said so. In a sense, emphasizing historical events has been brought to strengthen its sovereignty. China, with its U-shape and also 9 dash lines, since the 20th century, and then followed by Vietnam, which unilaterally claims until Taiwan and its peninsula. Even countries like the Philippines have even asked for reinforcement from America. Well, in contrast, Amitabh Acharya argued that the cooperation could be achieved because it is centered on ASEAN. There is a belief that the South China Sea can be an arena for achieving cooperation and achieving peace. One of the consistent actions that taken is the implementation of the ASEAN Regional Forum, or IRF, where IRF ensures the sustainability of the principle of multilateralism and seeks to strengthen each of sovereignty and also territorial. This actually should be the attitude of ASEAN countries, firm and stand still to a series of agreements within countries. I think this debate in discussing the dynamics of the South China Sea will be more dynamic, especially considering that there is an ASEAN way to be implemented in this conflict.
So you have heard the explanation of the South China Sea dispute, and I guess in this time I would like to give the stage to our analysts to actually give their thoughts or opinion about the issue itself and how actually the ASEAN Way could actually play a role in resolving in this issue. Maybe I would like to start with Ms. Alexia.
Thank you. This is a general view for me. So as we know, ASEAN is built to maintain regional peace, security, and stability. And people, of course, expect ASEAN to play a role in the South China Sea dispute, since the dispute itself is around the ASEAN region. Though in some way it seems to create more tension and maybe a little bit distrust between the parties and the states involved. And in the beginning, around 2002, the ASEAN member states and China has signed the declaration on the conduct of parties in the South China Sea, which was actually aimed to promote peace and also stable environment. But in the end, it doesn't really work, and it was evolved to the COC like we know for now. But to move to the topic of ASEAN Way, yes, it could be one of the methods to help solve this dispute. But on the South China Sea dispute, ASEAN Way's contribution was explained to provide a space to hold dialogues between states or parties that was involved. And also, since then, there are not really any solutions from the ASEAN Way in regards of this dispute. The way I see it, there are only normative, and now as ASEAN roles in the dispute will most likely be focused on trust building and also strengthening relationships and cooperation between states or parties.
Okay, Ms. Alexia, if I could actually revise or actually review your analysis. So basically, the ASEAN Way doesn't really have much of an impact on actually on acting as a problem solver or decision solver, right? Because as of now, there's no resolution that's been given for the South China Sea dispute because it is lacking something that they need. Okay, so maybe from Ms. Annisa could actually feel that gap.
So yeah, we've already heard about how ASEAN responds to the South China Sea disputes. However, ASEAN itself already faced the same scenario in some case disputes that happen in our region. So I want to talk about how ASEAN will affect institutional policy making within the region. This same scenario happens in the two disputes. It's intra-regional disputes. The first one is the Ambalat water disputes, and the second one is Thai-Cambodia borders disputes. The Ambalat happens between Malaysia and Indonesia, while the second is Cambodia and Thai. The difference about the two is the first one, the Malaysia and Indonesia disputes, they settle it in the ICJ, International Court Justice, whilst the Thai and Cambodia border disputes settled when Indonesia, as the chairman at the time, stepped on the conflict. So, in my opinion, ASEAN Way it has influence and it has affected how the policy makers and policy making around the disputes to be forced in the tables. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, we know.
Okay. So it is have the influence, but there it have so much weaknesses as well. Like the first one is ASEAN Way blurred the line of the internal and international conflict. So this ASEAN Way has become the doctrines to the member states not to intervene, not to step up in the conflicts and like trying to settle the disputes. That's the first one. And the second one's the doctrines make the ASEAN member doesn't I already mentioned it before, but yeah, the ASEAN members didn't want to involve in the disputes that happens at the time. So in my opinion, ASEAN Way is kinda, it's like a time bomb. They made their influence, but they didn't like officially made the disputes to be discussed in the official ASEAN Way. The official ASEAN tables, or the members that didn't bring it into the ASEAN Secretariat tables like that.
Okay, so I get what you mean. So if I could actually fill in and combine the two of your analysts, if we see from Ms. Annisa's opinion, is that ASEAN Way is actually a good, it's a suitable approach, but it has so many weaknesses, and it can be considered as a double-edged sword because it influence. It doesn't actually solve any conflicts or that, but actually influence to the parties to involve or create bilateral decisions, or like influence them to make an ASEAN summit, or basically formal action. But as I said, double-edged sword. Sometimes the influence kind of actually backs them back up to not actually create those formal actions. Actually, it kept them back in the dark depth of the conflict. So it's not going to be discussed. There's no solutions to be discussed, even though there are many parties that want this matter to be resolved, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, you guys heard it first about the ASEAN Way and the South China Sea dispute and its roles. Well, I hope you guys can understand about the South China Sea dispute and how the ASEAN Way actually play a role in this. And yeah, see you guys soon. Thank you.